heeding the call of Congress, the National Telecommunications Commission suspends SMNI over its alleged franchise violations.
President Marcos tells the armed forces to remain undeterred as tensions continue to rise in the West Philippine Sea.
And Senator J.V. Ejercito will be joining us live in the studio in just a bit to respond to the Chinese embassy singling him out for his supposed anti-China stance.
Welcome to the show. Good evening. I'm Regina.
I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Shawn.
Just a couple of days after the MTRCB suspended two of its programs, SMNI itself is now also facing suspension or has been suspended. The National Telecommunications Commission issued both a show cause order and a 30-day suspension order against the network. The NTC said it was acting on the lower house's resolution calling for such and citing alleged violations of the network's franchise. The suspension order covers both the TV and radio broadcast stations of SMNI. The NTC says the network violated at least 3 specific provisions of its legislative franchise. Suara Sug Media Corporation, the owner of SMNI, is given 15 days by the NTC to explain in writing why the network should not be administratively sanctioned. A hearing on the suspension order has also been set for January 4, 2024.
Well, today, what was handed out was both a show cause order and a suspension order at the same time.
We were just saying the hits keep coming.
Actually, it was that order, the suspension order, was issued on December 19. It was only today that they made it public.
Okay.
Yeah,
For 30 days. But the question is, parang hindi ba to, parang quite confusing.
I know what you mean.
There's a show cause order pero meron na ring
suspended na rin.
Meron na ring penalty.
Yes, because typically you issue a show cause order first, then give them a chance to respond, and then
you
if it
decide
doesn't
whether or
satisfy the
Doesn't
conditions.
this feel like the MTRCB verdict also, the preventive suspension naman for 15 days?
on 2 of the shows?
To investigate while investigations are ongoing.
Well, of course, just a little backgrounder. This all stemmed from House Resolution 1499, which stated that SMNI violated the terms and conditions of its franchise when one of its hosts claimed that Speaker Romualdez's travel expenses ballooned to 1.8 billion pesos. And like you guys said, nag-hand down na nga yung MTRCB ng 15-day suspensions.
For the 2 shows.
For the 2 shows.
Gikan sa masa?
Gikan para sa masa? Right, that is former President Duterte's show. And Laba Kasama ng Bayan, hosted by Lorraine Badoy and Ka Eric Celis. Now, at least one lawmaker was also dismayed by all this. Do you have a guess? Well, it's Senator Amy Marcos. In a statement, Senator Marcos said, "Who is afraid of SMNI? Which media entities will remain to uphold the freedom of the press, speech, and thought?" She went on to say, and I quote, "The right to due process and freedom of the press are cornerstones of our system of government. Unfortunately, these have not been adhered to in the NTC's decision to suspend SMNI's operations." Senator Marcos also says that this will have a chilling effect.
The National Union of Journalists of the Philippines also weighed in on the matter. They said that although they have issues with SMNI, the suspension is reminiscent of the previous administration's attempt to weaponize the law and muzzle media. NUJP went on to say that SMNI, its consultants and talents should be held accountable for offenses like peddling disinformation and hate speech, but not for offending a member of Congress. Now here to weigh in on that with us, on that suspension order against SMNI, we have on the program Vergel Santos, trustee at the Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility. Good evening.
Hi. Great to be with you guys.
Hey, Mr. Vergel, this honestly, it reminds me of the ABS-CBN franchise revocation years back. But does this weigh in on the same page for you, given also the history of alleged red tagging and peddling of disinformation of SMNI? The reaction of CMFR, please.
I don't know, but all of this will have to be taken in the context of the operating culture, which is one of patronage. We know very well that in the previous regime, SMNI was very much favored and therefore allowed somehow very licentious exercise of its franchise. It just happens that this is yet another regime, and therefore a new music will be playing for them to dance to. That's how it is. But if you ask me whether SMNI deserves to be sanctioned, I'd say yes, because the exercise of that franchise was quite flagrantly abusive, you know. But of course, it's for the courts to decide all that with finality.
Well, Vergel, actually, the NTC denying, Senator Amy Marcos, rather, has said that the NTC denied SMNI's right to due process. As we were talking about earlier, I'm not sure if you heard us, we were kind of confused kasi sabay po nilabas yung show cause order dun sa suspension order.
Yeah.
When usually, what are your thoughts on that, no? We
No, in the
understand kung
first-
baka,
yeah.
baka no love lost between, other media
No,
practitioners.
in the first place, Senator Amy Marcos should be the last one to open her mouth on the issue. First, she's a daughter of martial law. Second, she was favored by Duterte himself, the last regime. And third, her own partisanship is very clear. She makes it clear anyway. So the last person who should open her mouth on the issue is Senator Amy Marcos.
Your sentiments of her aside, can I get your thoughts on what she said about this potentially causing chilling effect on press freedom in the country? I mean, the idea that they could just suspend or revoke the franchise of SMNI, which, by the way, was just renewed a few years ago, so they have a long way to go. So do you think it could cause a chilling effect?
Neither Senator Marcos nor the others said nothing when the ABS-CBN was denied a renewal of its franchise, even after no violation. All violations alleged have been disproved, and now they are all saying that this shouldn't happen to SMNI. I can't quite understand this. This is what I'm saying. These things should be taken in the context of the operating culture, which is one of patronage. Apparently, SMNI is not enjoying the same favors as it did in the previous regime. That's how it works, It is very naive, even pretentious, to say that the courts will be able to decide this fair and square. No.
But
In this culture,
sir,
there will always be a debate on whether something has been decided fair and square.
right. But sir, if I could just, do you think it could cause a chilling effect, is the question, if you could just address that. May impact ba to sa ibang media organizations is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, what? Come again?
Will this have a chilling effect on press freedom in the country? Will this have an
No,
impact on other
The
networks?
operating culture has had a chilling effect on the media organization because it is a problem of culture. We've been operating under this culture. I am myself, I have been all this time, and I'm only taking my risks. That's how
Right.
it is.
Pero sir,
You
kung-
cannot escape the culture.
Yes, but if
You
that's
will
the
have to
case,
deal with it.
do we just deal with it? What then do we do about
Oh,
it?
yes, you will have to deal with it. What can you do? Tell me.
Sir,
What can you do when the powers that be decide that this nation or law should be put within the context of this culture? What would you do?
That's exactly what I wanted to get your thoughts on. What would
No. What we can do is simply operate within the law ourselves because we don't want it. We don't want ourselves to appear as if we were ourselves operating under the threatened culture. That is the problem. And the problem is that some of us don't actually, Some of us don't operate within a proper culture. Some of us have surrendered to that kind of culture so that you see journalism, the profession itself, being practiced on various levels and on various tones,
Mr. Vergel,
on various contexts. Why?
you
Precisely because some have decided to surrender to the culture, others have, are taking the risk under the culture and trying to be to practice their profession properly. But that's how it will always be. And therefore, there will be media that will be timid, there will be media that will not be so timid, and there will be media that will be bold. That's how it is.
Mr. Vergel, you mentioned that we should operate within the law and that SMNI deserves to be sanctioned. Do you think that a revocation or a suspension is proportionate to the violations that have been committed? Hindi po ba disproportionate naman na mawawala na yung buong franchise because of the work of 1, 2, 3 people, 1, 2, 3 shows?
This network has allowed certain people to practice broadcasting flagrantly abusively, di ba? Ngayon, what I'm saying is that they deserve to be sanctioned for that. Now, you are asking me whether to revoke the permit is a commensurate sanction. I can't say that. It's for the courts to say that. And even if the court said so, there will continue to be a debate on whether that sanction would be at all fair or not. But again, it is not for us to decide that. The court will decide that. And when the court decides, we will just have to abide by that decision. Now, what I'm saying is, I was asked the same question when they said that did ABS-CBN deserve it? I said definitely ABS-CBN did not deserve it. But what I'm saying now is that SMNI deserve to be sanctioned, definitely, but whether that sanction should be revocation of its franchise is another matter.
Right. Kasi po, di ba, syempre, sinanction na rin sila ng MTRCB that I think was a bit more easy to digest, a little bit easier to understand. Okay, nag-violate kayo on these 2 dates, nag-violate ka on this date, ito yung violate nyo, preventive suspension from the MTRCB. Hindi pa po ba yun sapat? Kailangan po ba tayo humantong sa total franchise revocation?
Hindi ko alam kung sapat yun eh. Kasi pag tiningnan mo yung rule on franchise, it is so broad that pwedeng sabihin talaga ng Congress dapat tanggalan ng lisensya yan eh. That is the problem. The problem is how, because the rules on franchises are so broad that you can actually rationalize whatever sanction you impose. That is the problem. In the first place, there should be a more specific law governing franchises. The second is that it should not be Congress should be giving franchises, but an independent commission. I don't know how you can create an independent commission to do that, but that would be ideal. And third is that always in the end, it is the judiciary, the courts, that should decide whether whatever sanction has come from a subordinate commission is fair or not. That's how it is. Alam niyo, mahirap kasing sabihin na tama o mali. It's not for us to say that. It is not even fair to make a determination for us, especially whether a particular sanction is fair or not. No, it's not. It's not. We've been operating in a culture of patronage. When the ruling patrons feel that they have to intervene or intercede, they do it. They have done it before. They have done it in the case of ABS-CBN very openly. The regime itself had warned even before ABS-CBN lost its franchise. The regime, the president himself, had warned that ABS-CBN would
Okay.
would face that fate. You see, but nobody asked whether was the president right to say that. Nobody did. Why? So that today, even the media are confused. How do the media practice the profession? You know, how am I practicing my profession at a um, proper level,
All right.
at a at a at a proper tone? You know, do I need to practice it boldly, or do I have to go easy? We don't know. Why? Because of the operating culture, patronage. When the ruling patrons um, tell you you would be in trouble if you exercise your profession so boldly, naturally a chill will blow across the profession, and therefore many of us would decide to practice the profession uh, less boldly or even timidly because we don't want to lose our jobs.
Loud and
That's how
clear.
it is.
Loud and clear.
Definitely a lot to chew on, huh?
Thank you very much for your thoughts and weighing in on that with us. Vergel Santos
Thank you too.
from the Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility. Now, after the break, President Bongbong Marcos has made it clear that the Philippines remains undeterred amid rising tensions in the West Philippine Sea. We'll deep dive into this issue with Senator J.B. Ejercito and Stratbase Group CEO and Managing Director Dindo Manhit when the big story returns. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News.
We are undeterred, at least when it comes to the West Philippine Sea. That's President Bongbong Marcos' message to the Armed Forces of the Philippines as they mark their 88th founding anniversary in Quezon City today.
Shall continue to assert our rights in accordance with the Philippine Constitution and international law. The recent incidents involving no less than our AFP Chief of Staff is worrisome. Yes, but it is a proud demonstration of Filipino courage against coercion and our firm resolve to protect, preserve, and uphold our territorial integrity. I know that our soldiers and our troops espouse the same values and principles, and they remain undeterred by actions that stir tension.
Now, this follows a phone call between Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. It's believed to be their first dialogue since the water cannon incident and collision in a Union Shoal last December 10. And it's interesting to note the difference in tone in the respective statements that were released after that call. Secretary Manalo said it was a frank and candid exchange that ended with a clear understanding of each country's respective position on a number of issues. Manalo said he and Wang noted the importance of dialogue in addressing these issues. That's pretty much it, short and sweet. But Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi was more somber, saying in a lengthy statement, bilateral relationship now stands at a crossroads and its future yet to be decided. The Philippine side must act with caution. He added that the severe difficulties facing China-PH relations are rooted in the fact that the Philippine side has changed its policy stance, reneged on the promises it has made, constantly provoked troubles at sea, and undermined China's legitimate and lawful rights. The Chinese foreign minister went on to warn that if the Philippine side misjudges the situation, goes its own way, or even colludes with its intentioned external forces to continue to stir up troubles, China will defend its rights in accordance with law and respond resolutely. He ended by saying both sides agreed to hold a meeting of the bilateral consultation mechanism as soon as possible. That was a lot. So given all the tit for tat over the WPS these past few weeks, we wanted to bring in big guests to help us make sense of things. So tonight we have Senate Deputy Majority Leader Senator J.V. Ejercito and Stratbase Group CEO and Managing Director Professor Dindo Manhit. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen.
Yes, good evening. Good to be back.
There was so much to unpack there in those two statements, but I'm going to go to you, Senator, first, and I need to explain why we called you in. Kasi you were singled out recently on a statement that the Chinese embassy posted on its Facebook page, and I believe we have that quote. The question kasi was, you were quoted as saying that there were intelligence reports that there were anti-China influencers operating locally. So part of that statement read that some Filipino politicians were, out of political self-interest, demonizing and hyped up maritime differences with the aim to demonize and smear China. So we wanted to bring you in
Yes.
to get your side of the story and your response, please.
Well, first of all, any Filipino in his right mind would not side with China. That's what I think. Because, in circumstances like this, the nation has to come together and unite against this issue, against a bully or an aggressor. And to my surprise, when I was very vocal against the hostilities, the aggression of China, this group of influencers, vloggers, began attacking me already. So I did some research also, and there were reports that they are already being funded by China to create trouble internally, because right now we have the West Philippine issue as our external issue right now, external problem. Of course, they have to probably divert or create something internally so that the focus of government will be diverted, and they can do their thing in the West Philippine issue. And I would think it's also part of the stabilization campaign. It's not far-fetched because of the territorial dispute with China. They are in the belief that the present administration, as under President Bongbong Marcos, is siding with the Western states, particularly the U.S., which is not true. I agree with the stand of the president that he is defending our territorial integrity and sovereignty because China is already intruding into our exclusive economic zone and territorial waters.
I believe it's not just you that's being attacked online. It's also Commodore J. Tariela, the speakers, and President.
Said President
Sa
Lee.
investigation nyo po, ano po yung similar pattern among these attacks that you're getting and the narratives also?
Well, probably this happened 2 months ago. Probably they just came in from China. This specific group went to China for about 2 weeks. Who would stay in China for 2 weeks, right? I think they were sponsored, briefed probably, and to have the same to communicate the message of China. Because if you would look at their post, same narrative, sometimes tamad na, cut and paste
Ano
na
po
eh.
yung sinasabi?
Well, that those territories are disputed territories, no? Or some are Chinese territories. And for ako, what I'm a politician. I'm used to criticisms, fighting political adversaries. But what I cannot really stomach or take is that Filipinos would be on the side of China in this, especially in this issue of dispute with our territories.
So, Senator, what you're saying is, linawin ko lang, no? Pinaimbestigahan nyo talaga. Because if I remember correctly, since November, early November pa, nababasa ko na yung news na you're
Yes.
getting trolled, you're tweeting that you're getting trolled every now and then. So, talagang pinaimbestigahan nyo to? Tong
Hindi
mga
naman.
sources?
I
Or-
receive information, especially when there are chance meetings on the sides with the AFP intelligence group. They confirmed that there's a certain group that is being used for destabilization and misinformation, that they are already communicating or propagating the lines of the Chinese government.
Okay, Dindo, I'm going to go to you now. You heard that very lengthy statement from the Chinese Foreign Ministry. It almost feels like almost every day we're getting a statement from China. Tapos we'll respond, and then they'll respond. It's tit for tat, essentially, and it feels like it's getting more inflammatory. Are we reading it the right way, or is this our tensions really rising?
I think we're the only country that gives balanced reporting to China. What should we focus on is what is Philippine national interest. And we should focus more time on the statement of our own president. He is undeterred, and we will continue to be assertive. But if you've noticed, even the way we report it, Manalo says, China says. This is the Philippines. And our focus should be, how can we protect our territorial integrity based on clear international law? How do we protect our maritime rights? How do we build our capacity through what we call collective deterrence with other countries? And when they speak of being used by the West, why is India with us? Korea, Japan with us? No? Why is nations like Australia, New Zealand hoping to build stronger maritime cooperation with us? So when you look at these countries and you add EU nations, 17 among EU nations have strongly stated, and we add UK, why? Because we have one common value. We believe in a rules-based international system.
But yun nga yung
We
problem,
shouldn't do
Dindo.
he said. He
She
said,
said,
he
she
said.
said.
He
But
said,
that's
he
what I'm
said
saying.
pala. We
Okay,
shouldn't do he
noted,
said.
noted.
But that's what I'm saying. Why don't you track? Japan has territorial issues with China. Senkaku. Do you hear this
Senkaku
being
Island.
reported?
So it's
South-
not enough to do this transparency offensive that
No,
we're
we
trying.
should continue, and we should always factor in national interests. I'll cross what you asked the senator. Why that Facebook post is a disrespect to an elected senator of the Philippines. But not one of you raised that issue. He's not a politician. He's an elected senator.
Yes. What
Right? Imagine we tell that to a member of the National Congress of China. We tell that to a sitting member of U.S. Senate. Will ABC News, will CNN say that? The Chinese attacked a senator of the land. So it's about us and our national interest. It's about our territory, our fisher folks, our marine resources. That's what we should focus on.
But Dindo, here's the thing, no? Yeah, we keep saying that, and we keep saying, of course, and what we believe is that we should all follow the international order, international law. But the issue is that China does not exactly ascribe to this. So, paano yun? In
We
terms
are
of,
trying to catch up for what we lost in 6 years. In 6 years, that's when all these shoals, rocks, became undisputed based on the international law. So this is only a catch-up. So we cannot give up on where we are.
right, but
And-
at the core of it, no, is if we believe in international law, we ascribe to it and we follow it. And yung kalaban mo, kumbaga, is playing by a completely different set of rules. And then we are now in this stalemate, and what then can we do? I mean, we can easily change our reporting. We can easily,
Continue
edit.
to assert what is yours. Because if I'll follow that line of question, Shawn, is, so we give in to China. Because China has a long view. China has seen this island as what we call the first island chain. To be powerful by 2049, they need to take control of what they call the first island chain, which you all don't know, of course. That is the South China Sea Islands, which is ASEAN maritime nations. Then after that, they go to the second island chain, which is the Pacific
Pacific,
Islands.
right.
Then they control Pacific and
And South
South China Sea. And who passes there? European trade. So we have to look at it from strategic. Years ago, we had this visit from, you might say, a controversial president of the US, Trump. He even called the Philippines, you're a good real estate. Because we play that important role. When you see geopolitics in a map, we tend to have this bias that we always look at it from Atlantic Ocean. But when you see it from an Indian Ocean to Pacific Ocean, in the middle of that is a country called Republic of the Philippines. And the Philippines is the only country among so-called ASEAN that stood up, filed a case, and won. And it will not be easy. That was not the whole idea. After we win, China will give in. No. But we have to build. But we lost 6 years. And I
But that's
tried
another
to
issue now that you've brought it up, because, of course, every 6 years we change administrations and they can shift foreign policy. Was there any kind of a solution to that?
So the solution is you institutionalize where we stand today, because I've always believed whoever that president is down the road is afraid of the Filipino people. And based from my institution's biannual study, it ranges since 2016, 80 to 90% of Filipinos would like to assert their rights.
Is that something that the Senate is open to doing, Senator JV?
Well, I think speaking for the Senate as a whole, no, because we passed a resolution regarding the aggression, the hostilities, the very hostile manner by which China has been treating our Coast Guard, our Navy, our fishermen. It was unanimous, both minority and majority. I think, if I'm not mistaken, all senators signed this resolution and recommended steps to take. No, again, the bottom line is we have to assert our territorial integrity and sovereignty. And if I may add to what Professor Dindo has mentioned, on a hindsight, because my father was then president when the mischief reef happened. It was already during the
We
FBI
lost
time.
mischief
We lost
during the Ramos time.
mischief reef. And so
Nobody likes to talk about those facts.
it was not discussed. So when
Because
he
it's a
assumed,
cover-up for what we lost.
What did we lose?
We
The
lost
mischief reef.
The mischief reef.
an island.
So when going back, when President Estrada took over, of course the DFA, and he was able to, he was in a possession of intel reports, images, I think supplied by US or whoever. But that was then he ordered for the BRP Sierra Madre to be grounded to serve as our temporary marker and temporary station for our Philippine Marines. So he was the one who ordered that.
Di ba nga we were trying to figure out who promised China daw to
Yeah.
tow away
And
the
it was
BRP
China saying
Sierra
that
Madre.
President Estrada committed to remove, but that's
Correct.
inconsistent because he was
Why
the
would
one
he ground?
who ordered it to be grounded. And if I may add, during the ASEAN Plus 3 summit that included South Korea, Japan, and China, the Chinese vice president at that time, Hu Jintang, was caught by surprise. No, he became president eventually because it was President Estrada who criticized and exposed what China was doing already, yung expansionism already, reclaiming and expanding in that area. So I think he was the first head of state to criticize China on this high level and in this forum. So everybody followed suit, no? And sad to say that it was not followed through by the some administrations that followed.
So we're also playing catch up on
Yes.
that end, right? Let's go on over to the northern side of the Philippines, where Taiwan is, where Japan is. China said that Taiwan will return to mainland China. I think that just came in today. Talk to us about our alliance with Japan. What is it that has edged them to make a change also in terms of foreign policy and
Japan or?
Japan?
Japan, if you've noticed, has become assertive since the time of the previous, the late Prime Minister Abe. He envisioned what he called the free and open Indo-Pacific. The idea that only those that believe on a rules-based international order from the Indian Ocean to the Pacific Ocean should ally together to protect even the weaker countries. And again, why is it important? Look, when you look at global trade, the geoeconomics, there's how trade, oil, gas, goods and everything, it passes through all this, the South China Sea. In the Philippines, what's critical, a lot of people don't realize, it passes through a place called Luzon Strait, the Bashi Channel, which is the northern part of the Philippines. That's how it passes. And Japan is very important to that. So because of that, you see Korea, Japan getting closer. Though culturally, historically, they've always had friction. But now they see a threat to them.
If I may add, with the, in our last trip to Japan, the parliamentary visit, it's an official led by our Senate President. Before I remember, every time we go to Japan on an official trip, they emphasize on our cooperation, on the ODAs, no, the development, the infrastructure, economic. But this time, from the Speaker of the House to the head of the Senate and to the Prime Minister, which we had an opportunity to have the meeting, they really emphasized this time on the regional security. And they were asking for us to have to pass the regional access agreement so that our navies, no, their defense force and our AFP can have exchanges and joint patrols in this area. As mentioned by Prof. Dindo, this is really very important economically for EU, for ASEAN, because we need to ensure the freedom of navigation in that area. That's why Japan has really emphasized this time on regional security.
Also, I might point out, Prime Minister Kishida himself was here
Yes,
recently
yes.
addressing Congress.
Yes,
When
and
was the
he
last time?
emphasized it during
Correct.
that time as
When was the
well.
last time a Japanese Prime Minister was here?
Prime Minister
right?
of Australia
Yes.
saying security
That's right.
issues also. So why are they collectively saying it when this is simply an issue between the US and China and we're just being used? So again, this is a line that we should not perpetuate in our own country.
But when the president himself says the relationship with China is not not going in good direction, and that we need a paradigm shift, what do we make of that? Does that worry you?
Well, I think he said that because there have been hundreds of note verbales, no, or diplomatic processes that have been sent to China and fell on deaf ears, no. But probably this time, well, on our part, our recommendation, aside from, well, we keep our lines open, exhaust all diplomatic means, but on our part, we have to strengthen our AFP, our Navy, our Coast Guard to put up that minimum credible defense posture. We cannot match China, no doubt, or they are a superpower, but at least have a respectable Coast Guard and Navy that, you know, that they will not be bullied or think twice, no? So, third is we have to strengthen our relationship with the right-thinking nations, our traditional allies, and probably open also lines with ASEAN neighbors who have this similar dispute with China. So because there's threat in numbers.
Can we afford an
Okay,
economic
Gretch,
sanction?
hold that thought. I think we have to go on a break. Let us digest
Teka lang,
everything.
your question is, can we afford it?
An economic sanction.
Okay, so think about that for a few minutes. We will pause for a break.
Easy to answer.
We will continue our discussion with Senate Deputy Majority Leader JV Ejercito and Stratbase Group CEO and Managing Director Dindo Manhit in just a few minutes. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. You're still watching The Big Story here on One News.
Okay,
I will
economic
continue
sanctions.
with my question. Can we afford economic sanctions? Teka, medyo maging practical tayo dito kasi we talk about patriotism, love for the country. But also, it is quite painful to lose, for example, cheap products.
Cheap products,
from
cheap raw
China.
materials.
We order from Lazada, Shopee, all these
I think she's
e-commerce
speaking for
apps.
herself.
Not just me, di ba?
Okay, okay,
But
okay.
also, this is a concern of big businessmen, economic sector here in the Philippines. Can we afford to at least, pinch China on that end?
When
Yeah,
you look
even
at,
Tessie
To
Costa
shift
has
the
said
power.
something about it recently.
if you will bring the concept of businessmen, I know the latest quantitative data about businessmen, 64% support the president's assertiveness on international issues. That's according to
64.
the
64%,
the
okay.
Price Waterhouse Management Association of the Philippines. A statement by one person does not reflect business. But me, I go to data, which is 2022. We still don't have 2023 data. And historically, our most valuable partners is Japan, US, EU, South Korea, in terms of trade, import-export. Not because we import a lot. That's a strong trading point. That was the line of the Chinese with Duterte to make the relationship important.
He was holding that. I mean, China was holding that over the
Yes.
former administration's
But
hand.
again, what drives the Philippine economy? Because you speak of economic sanction. Not our
Services.
imports.
Services.
Which is number one, due to business process outsourcing. English-speaking nations who share values and who support our assertiveness. Second, remittances. The main drivers of remittances are, again, value, not Hong Kong,
OFWs.
but OFWs or migrants in the US and the Europe also. So when you look at all these drivers, then we go to our small manufacturing sector, driven by Japanese and Korean investors in the eco zones. So we have to be factual. Again, that's the narrative of China. But when you break it down, 0.9% of investment in 2022 was from China. 0.9%. according to Bangko Sentral.
So less than 1%.
Less than 1%. I'm just emphasizing, it did not even hit 1%.
So yung imports lang ang malakas. Papasok.
But
Yung mga
that's
in-order
needed.
mo siya,
In order online.
Uy,
na, napipiko ng mga nasa
Hindi, so
bookstore,
hindi lang clothes.
magagalit ang mga business, di ba? Tiyatamaan yung mga
Legitimate
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 retailers natin dito.
So you are dispelling the notion that we are economically dependent on China.
Yes, unlike other ASEAN countries.
Okay,
They
wait lang.
need us, they need us more.
Okay,
Consumer
may
business.
graph siya, may graph.
I looked up the latest data. Imports from China, electronic equipment. So these are raw materials needed
Okay?
by
Can you break
local
that down?
manufacturers. Wala, walang big
Oh, you
breakdown
know the
eh.
breakdown? Huawei
Semiconductor.
products. Semiconductors.
Chips, yeah.
But we do semiconductors here in the country.
Ito na lang,
Diba?
Prof
Diba?
Dindo,
Baka
to
magalit
make
sa
us
inyo ang
feel better.
SAPI, diba? The
Yes, SAPI,
Semi-Electronic
yes.
Conductors Association.
But
Who wants
they
even to-
also import from China
Mostly
to make
No.
the parts,
then,
right?
then we can import also from Taiwan, Japan.
You're
South
saying may
Korea.
other sources of
Yeah,
this.
would it be,
Because they're the
kumbaga,
number driver.
cost-efficient, Red? If we, kasi let's just say, okay, theoretically now, we lose China as our import source for raw materials. Can we easily find other sources na ganun kamura? Yun lang naman yung concern, I think, ng business sector.
The funny thing is our manufacturing strong.
Hindi, but
No,
but
just ask you, diba? So why will it affect our economy when the import is supposed to support manufacturing? So why is it a driver of the economy? Kasi kasasabi lang natin, manufacturing is not strong.
I'm taking it
So
from
ako,
Prof.
Ako, I've
Dindo.
always believed that those imports are not the one that are essential.
It's true, but
Kasi
aren't
if-
we supposed to be supporting and trying to
Okay.
like make bigger our
Yes.
manufacturing
Yes.
sector?
That I'm an advocate of that,
Yes,
for
yeah.
example. Who drives our manufacturing, for example? Coca-Cola, Unilever, China. Second, Japanese, Koreans in our special economic zones. Will they bring into China? Or they're bringing to China because it's coming from Japanese firms operating in China, who is now moving to the Philippines, but we import it.
Okay.
So
Okay,
that's what
thanks
I'm
for
saying.
making us feel better on that.
No, because we have to believe that ako, I'm a patriot and I'm an optimist. But I'm also a geo-analyst. And in this geo-economic world, and United Nations data of trade will reflect this, there is what's happening, especially as we move to 2024, we call friend shoring. I don't know if you've heard of that. Deglobalization. The world will
Yes.
be divided. Who will benefit from here? That's why it's called friend shoring.
I think
Friends
ASEAN,
will-
in large part, is still heading towards globalization.
Yes.
Yung deglobalization sa West yan eh, like the
but-
US, Europe,
But who do we trade with?
ASEAN.
Oh, damn. diba? So again,
Okay,
I'm a
I get your point.
That's why my premise was I'm a patriot. I'm for Philippine national interest. We trade with this country. Why don't we maximize it? Why do we keep defending a nation that extracts more from us?
What will...
And hostile, antagonistic, coercive.
Maybe we can have incentives for the business sector to source from other countries.
Actually,
Such
yes,
possible.
we have. And
if I may
yes, we
add,
have.
We have.
if I may add, Prof.
Yes, yes, Senator.
We also recently came from different EU countries, no, to improve the relationship, which also suffered. So we're trying to repair, and they're quite excited, and looking at the Philippines now, and to improve the trading, and looking at the Philippines as a major trading partner in the ASEAN region. So they are quite optimistic about having the Philippines as a partner.
Okay, so economic sanctions don't mean much, but this idea of joint patrols in the disputed waters keeps coming up as a solution to the standoff with China. What good will that do if we do joint patrols with the US, for
I'll
instance?
use two words: collective deterrence. What does it mean? Can they bully? In the rule of playground, I think we all played playground politics. Do you bully? When you're bullied, you go to a bigger friend, or you make yourself either supported by others. So that's what they call collective deterrence in security analysis. They can bully a small country because even in our own news, we discuss how weak we are.
Yeah.
Right? Right? But
Fair.
if you are in joint patrols together, will they even
Try.
bump a U.S. Navy, a Japanese Defense Force, an Australian boat,
South Korea.
a South Korean Navy?
So they
an
wouldn't
Indian?
dare water cannon kapag may kasama tayong iba. Senator, I
Because
just...
that's a game of deterrence, as we call
Actually,
it.
that's one of the recommendation of the Senate
Yeah.
to improve the relationship and have these joint patrols and with our traditional allies like South Korea, Japan, U.S., Australia, and with ASEAN countries that have this similar disputes with China. At least there's strength in numbers and hopefully collective deterrence. No? Is what Prof. Dindo has mentioned.
Sam, just wanted to do a quick follow-up on the Maritime Zones Act. How are we doing on that? Because as I understand, it's very important.
Yes.
Before we can start asserting ourselves even more. Where are we on that? I think it's under Senator Tolentino's.
From what I remember, he already sponsored it.
Yeah.
It's already on the plenary for debates. So I'm sure that you will be guesting him. He's in a better position to explain. But it is already moving. He just sponsored it before we went on our break.
So by next year, for
yes,
sure?
For sure, because that's very important, especially in this with the circumstances that we are in with China right now.
Or is there anything else on the Senate's docket that could help us in this assertion of our rights?
Well, on our part, we have been quietly helping strengthen our naval force, no? Our Coast Guard. We have allotted quite a lot in this budget this time, which was cut before. It was restored, then we added more, so that our Coast Guard will be able to acquire a lot of vessels and our navies. And on a hindsight also, during our trips to Spain, Paris, Japan, with the Senate President, together with the Senate President, because I'm also interested in this, we do our side trips, no? On this vessel manufacturing.
Defense shopping.
Defense shopping. Yes, well, that's true.
Puro shopping
Actually, in
tayo.
one instance, we went from Paris, we left at 8 a.m., arrived in Paris at 2 a.m. No, we went to Normandy, so our naval group. We looked at submarines and other high-tech equipment that we can acquire. And we're trying to look for the best package because we cannot afford to buy these outright. And they are offering, in fact, 18 years to pay, 20 years, so that it will be more affordable.
May gives.
Dindo,
By Gibbs.
we're being told to wrap up, but very, very quickly, in one line, your overall assessment of foreign policy under President Marcos.
The president has really emphasized an independent foreign policy. And it's about Philippine national interests based on asserting our rights and also our position vis-a-vis creating economic prosperity through his trips. Hopefully, it redounds to actual investment. So you have to give him a good mark for that.
Okay, and on that note, on that positive note, we're going to end the show. Thank you so much for joining us, Senator J.V. Ejercito and Stratbase Group CEO and Managing Director, Dindo Manhit.
And like Regina said, that's all the time we have for the show on
We
this
could keep
Thursday
going,
night.
but
We could, but we
Our
are
producers will yell at us.
I'm still thinking about my shopping.
You have to find alternate sources of shopping
Oo nga.
A lot of thinking
Buy
to
local.
do
over the holidays.
over the holidays as we buy our gifts and shop everywhere. We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.